Hi there. My name is Emanuel Moss, and I am presenting on behalf of myself, Ranjit Singh, Elizabeth Ann Watkins, and Jacob Metcalf. And we're all part of the AI on the Ground initiative at Data and Society Research Institute. I also have an affiliation with the CUNY Graduate Center, and Elizabeth has an affiliation with the Center for Information Technology Policy at Princeton University. And I'm going to be talking about a piece we're working on called The Society Machine: Methods, Ethics, Policy, and the Mutual Shaping of AI and Society. So this is a symposium on AI and society. And what we want to do throughout this presentation is to focus our attention on that ampersand, the ampersand between AI and society. We want to ask, when we say AI and society, what do we mean by and? Because what we're interested in here is how AI and society are brought into relation with each other. Our argument is that the way we frame the relationship between AI and society has profound implications for how we study it, for how we think about the ethical stakes of that relationship, and for how we develop policies to govern that relationship. And we suggest that the dominant ways of framing that relationship lead to theoretical, methodological, and regulatory approaches that are different from approaches that might be suggested by alternate framings of the relationship. Adversarial framings of the relationship between AI and society are exceedingly common, particularly in Western contexts. The adversarial relationship is seldom as extreme as sci-fi renderings of an all-out war between humanity and artificial superintelligence that you might see in the Terminator franchise or in the Matrix movies. Rather, even when all-out war framings are purposefully avoided, we still often find adversarialism appear as concerns about the effects of AI on society, the risks of AI to society, or the consequences of AI for society. Framing AI and society as separate and adversarial domains that must be reconciled with each other underlies research assumptions around radical changes in society through AI and speculations on a variety of existential risks. Such studies see the goal of governance practices and ethical inquiry as protecting society from an external force, whether that be threats to labor from automation, threats to life from autonomous weapons, or threats to the production of knowledge from algorithmic filtering. Adversarial framings of the relationship between AI and society often exemplify either social or technological determinism, in which one determines the course of the other. Narratives of technological determinism see new technologies upending and remaking social orders or remaking the entire world in their own image. And narratives of social determinism see technologies as arising out of or as expressions of specific social orders. Determinism leaves its mark in projects that seek to remake society through technological interventions like the One Laptop Per Child program, and in approaches that see technology as the primary analytic for society. However, on-the-ground experiences of building and integrating AI systems do not resonate with an adversarial frame because the introduction of AI neither creates wholly new social relations, nor does it entirely upend existing relationships. Rather, AI systems encounter social relations that are often already shaped by computational logics, and AI systems are likewise shaped by social relationships in subtle ways. In response to adversarial framings, we suggest framing the study, development, and governance of AI systems around how AI and society mutually shape each other. Just as a community can construct a barn, the barn can also construct the community. It shapes the way families with access to different resources interact with each other. It shapes when they interact. It shapes when they interact with each other, and it holds the community together over time. Within this frame, AI is always already embedded within society. AI development flows out of social practices, responds to social cues, mediates and inflects social practices, and is constructed from socially produced and historically inflected knowledge and data. And AI is integrated into pre-existing social relations that have themselves long been shaped by the statistical and machine logics that underlie AI-based systems, as well as the capitalist logics that shape their development. In STS and allied fields, a number of constructivist approaches rebut technological determinism by allowing for a two-way flow of influence between social and technological spheres, even while maintaining distinctions between them. Slightly in contrast to this, feminist approaches to STS encourage us to see the boundaries of society and technology as indeterminate, emergent, and entangled, acting together to bring each other into existence. We embrace this view in which society and technology are mutually shaping to reframe the study of AI in society. Seeing AI in society as mutually shaping redirects our attention from the effects of AI on society toward the way AI is implicated in producing and mediating particular social relations, even as existing social relations shape the applications of AI, allocate resources to certain AI systems, and co-constitute the lived experiences of harm from AI systems. In this view, there's no society outside of AI for AI to affect, as AI is itself implicated in a set of social relations embedded with many others. For example, market, kinship, semiotic, class, power, race, gender, and political relations. Recent empirical work backs up this view of AI and society as mutually shaping each other. Lucy Suchman has shown through on-the-ground studies how local practices shape the meaning, use, and design of technologies, even as those technologies also remake aspects of local practices. Numerous case studies also show that adversarialism does not happen on the ground. One study conducted by Data and Society's Madeline Eilish and Elizabeth Watkins recently used ethnographic methods to examine the integration of machine learning into clinical care. In this case, algorithmic tools did not replace workers or eliminate jobs. Instead, machine learning outputs were stitched into nurses' existing workflows, who used their own judgment to determine whether, when, and how that output was best introduced into diagnostic decision-making. Empirical questions crafted within a frame of mutual shaping inform methodological approaches, which pay ethnographic attention to the distribution of agency between technological objects and social practices to affect each other, and map the emergence of new socio-technical formations within a field site. Mutual shaping as a frame for the analysis of the relationship between AI and society also embraces other nested frames that are less common in North America and Europe. Such non-adversarial framings, which Danit Gal has analyzed in her study of ethical and regulatory approaches to AI in China, South Korea, and Japan, places the ways of conceptualizing the relationship between AI and society on a continuum that extends from AI framed as a tool to AI framed as a partner. Each end of the spectrum has implications for policy, as tool-like relationships prioritize human controls over, prioritize human control over tools, while partner-like relationships acknowledge the limitations of both AI and human capabilities outside of such partnerships and grant humans equal complementary agency. Gal's example from East Asia trenchantly shows that adversarial framings are not the only option at hand for developing policy to regulate AI. Shifting towards a non-adversarial frame allows for reimagining the relationship between AI and society, and our collective approach to empirical studies, ethical reasoning, and policy work. From a global perspective, different societies and nation states are already in the process of evaluating their approach to framing the relationship between AI and society and defining their own respective ways of designing, building, integrating, and regulating AI systems. Mutual shaping as a frame for the relationship between AI and society is also crucial for how we approach the ethical stakes of AI technologies that can profoundly impact the lives of individuals and communities, and can most drastically impact already vulnerable individuals and communities. Ethical judgments about the appropriate behavior of an AI system cannot be rendered unless the context of that system is taken into account. However, increasingly, technological and social practices together enact many of the most salient features of social life. Credit scores, conditions of release from pretrial and imprisonment, newsfeed curation, and many, many more AI applications are shaped by social practices that produce the data those AI systems translate into decisions, predictions, or recommendations. Where society and AI thus shape each other, judgments about the appropriate or ethical behavior of AI systems are somewhat moot unless those judgments can consider how AI systems, already in a complex set of relations with society, are productive of the context in which those judgments are to be rendered. Seen in this way, the ethical stakes of AI cannot be governed by explicit rules or rigid frameworks designed to extend across contexts, but instead require constant attention to the way ethical stakes emerge within specific contexts, an attention which calls for methodological and regulatory innovation. We argue throughout our work that shifting away from adversarial framings and toward a framing in which AI and society mutually shape each other is crucial for developing methodological approaches to the empirical study of socio-technical systems. And we document and extend ongoing efforts to do so throughout our work. The metaphors that underlie our studies of AI and society ultimately inform policies that engage with and regulate socio-technical systems. And we examine several policy approaches that have been developed outside an adversarial framing. We speculate that an adversarial solutionist approach to studying, grappling with, and governing AI systems ultimately blunts the possibilities of improving our socio-material conditions with AI. I want to thank you on behalf of my co-authors and look forward to a stimulating discussion. Thank you so much.